So how do you grow your business when you don't have time? I kind of feel like today we don't have any time, yet we're still here showing up, growing our business. What is going on, everybody? So here's the thing, like when you have um, kids, when you have a full-time job, when you're trying to grow your business, when you're married, when you have your physical health is important to you, you can very easily run out of time. I know we've been through a lot of experiences where it felt like we ran out of time.
Mhm.
But one of the things that we did through the process of not only growing a business while working in those crazy times when our kids, especially, were really young, but also finding some strategies to help us get past that. I think in the beginning, like we weren't really open to finding different ideas and things that were outside of what we were currently doing.
Mhm.
And by doing and going through the pain that we had to go through, we ended up speeding up the process and being able to leave our full-time jobs and creating kind of like the life that we want, that we were dreaming of, right?
Mhm.
Which still doesn't mean it's pain-free because there's still struggles that are happening. Like 2 minutes before the call, you're still on a different call, right? But that's the way that success looks, right? That's like what Kurt and I say. This is what success looks like, right? But that being said, we really want to help people by sharing some of the things that we learned through the process that really we don't want them to have to go through the pain themselves, right?
Yeah.
So if you are someone who is wondering how in the world can I grow a super successful large business that actually fulfills my needs, gives me that purpose that I truly like want without having to sacrifice my family time or my personal health, that's what we're going to do today. So let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go.
So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We want to first welcome all the new people who are here watching this live stream. We appreciate you so much. Welcome to the community. We always love having new people join us. And also I want to give a shout out to the people who have been returning. I mean, we have a lot of people who are in here inside of our Master Coach training program, which we literally just got done with right now, right? And no, he's still on the call, right, Gadeem? But they're here with us. Appreciate you guys so much. And then, of course, we have our inner circle members. So those are people who want to take a deeper dive with me and Teresa, get some additional help and support, extra calls through YouTube here, but really want to be a part of a community who's out there, who's striving, who's pushing, who wants to grow together as a team and want to grow exponentially and as fast as possible. That's what we do inside the inner circle. If you're curious about what that looks like, you can click the join button below after this video and it'll break down a little bit about how it works and how we're able to keep it super low cost. So some of those people are Tina and Shelly and Kurt and Trisha and Gedeen. Thank you guys so much for always supporting us and being along in this mission. So what we have for today, first off, do you want to say hello? I'm sorry. I'm like so pumped up for my last call that I can hardly stop talking. Go ahead.
That's okay. We need that energy, right? Especially on a Saturday morning. But yeah, welcome. I'm so glad to be here. And like Mark said, we're literally like seconds in, we were just scrambling. And it's just like, it's real life. If we showed you behind the scenes, like you'd be like, oh, what are these people doing? But we make it happen. And we're actually going to talk about how, we like manage our time and are able to do these things where it's not always perfect, of course, but we make it happen and we make the best of it. So
yeah. What's up? What's up? What's up, Anthony? Sorry, Anthony says, what's up? And I looked at you and say, what's up?
Like, okay.
What's going on, Anthony? Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys can hear, but our puppy, he got neutered. So he has this little thing on that looks like a lampshade and he keeps smacking it into everything that he's trying to do. So if you hear him, we're going to ask my son to step in and help him out. But yeah, so today we really want to talk about like what kind of like our daily plan was back when we were working full time that allowed us to leave our full-time jobs and come create a business that allowed us to, be able to leave our jobs and be able to work from home. Right. And I do want to say this, like when you hear about like different plans and different strategies that other people have, I think sometimes we become married to those plans and those strategies, and they're really not in alignment with what we truly want. So we're going to take you through a really quick workshop today to help you identify like what helps you and what, depending on what you want to create and how much time you have, how you can use that to be most effective. But I also want to share like some of the strategies that we have employed that have really helped us speed up the process. It's what we help our one-on-one clients from or through, is being able to help guide them over a session to find out what's like really going to work for them. And it's a mixture sometimes of what we're going to talk about today and things that are like we really just bring out through asking them powerful questions. So we don't want you to be married or handcuffed to what we're doing. We just want to open the doors to maybe some possibilities. And then we're going to take you through a mini workshop so you can see how it can be most effective for you. Now, that being said, one of the things we're not going to do is we're not going to tell you to have a 3-hour morning routine before you get into work. All you got is an hour. I don't want you to spend an hour preparing to work and then not work at all and not have any time.
Or 15 minutes. I mean,
it's going to have to be something that's personalized for you. This is why working with a coach is so helpful, because then you think that, oh, I have to do all of these things for 2 hours in the morning, and you don't. It depends on where you are, where you want to go, and what is the best use of your time, right? I have this coach who asks me all the time, like, how can you be most effective in that time? How can you be most effective? And it changes my mindset around, I only have an hour to, I've got to get this stuff done that is the most important piece of the needle, all right? So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to share that with you because I see a lot of people coming out here telling everybody about their morning routines, and then everybody does it by the T, and then they say, oh, this could never work for me, or they stay married to it and they're actually not working their business because they're taking on the routines of somebody who's full-time in business, and they're working full-time and trying to do this part-time, and it's just not congruent. So all that to say, like, I want you to be open to some of the ideas and strategies that we have here today, but also like personalizing this for your specific needs is what we're going to be doing a little bit later. And then of course we have our inner circle where we can take a deeper dive if you want some additional help. So ready to do this?
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay. So I kind of broke this up into 3 different days. Okay. 3 different days. So back when I was, Steve, good morning. Good morning. So back when I was working full-time at LAPD, I would have a work day, is what I would consider a work day, which is when I knew that I was going to have to be at work at LAPD, and I was going to have to try and fit in whatever I could for my business in that day. Then I had days off. Okay. It was funny saying days off, but when you're growing a business, you really don't have like days off. Oh yeah. It's never happens. Right. So when you have like those days where your off days, I had a different kind of schedule that I would follow. And then I had what I would term Sundays, which is kind of like my rest and recovery day. Some people work 7 days the same way they do, throughout the week. And if it's something that works for you, awesome. But I realized that on Sundays, if I do a little bit of work, but then, play ARC with my son or do something with Teresa or Alyssa, like I'm recharged on Monday to jump back in. But if I kind of work through it on Sunday, I found that I was coming back to Monday going, oh, here we go again. Right. So for me, that's why I had 3 different types of days. Now, being able to identify these days for you is going to be important, because you're going to have days where you're like, I have to be at work full-time if you're working full-time, or I get access to working my business full-time this day, or I have to be the parent this day because it's Saturday and Sunday and the kids are there. Like, you have to figure out what your versions of days are. And doing this really did help me, because if I was like, it's Tuesday today, it's a work day, it would be different, because maybe Saturday was a work day too. With a police schedule, it could be anywhere, but I could literally just take this day and implant it wherever it was that I was working that week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, I'm going to share what I would do on my normal work days to get the most done in my business. All right. So first off, is in the morning time, and I also did this, by the way, if I was working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., I did the same exact thing, except for it was when I woke up in the middle of the day. Actually, it was like dinner time is then I did this routine, and I would just fluctuate that routine to earlier in the morning if I was working in the mornings, because I was working so many different shifts as a police officer. I had to find a way to make it work. Right. But basically, whenever I woke up, I would spend about 30 minutes doing things that kind of fueled me to make me come alive and to remind me of like what I'm fighting for, and also get me excited and motivated to do the work stuff, or to spend, more time with the family, or to, connect at my career. And so for me, what that looked like is something related to personal growth. So I have about 10 minutes worth of personal growth. I would do some type of like affirmations, like reading some of the things where it's like my goals, what I want to accomplish, what kind of impact is that going to have on the people in my life? What kind of impact is that going to make on me? What is it going to make possible that's not right now? Like, I would just remind myself of those things for about 5 minutes. Then I would do something related to like what I'm thankful for today, which has to be different from the day before. I always try and push myself to think about like, what am I most thankful for today? So for today, I wrote down, me and Andrew, we get to spend some time playing Ark together after lunch today. And I'm most thankful for that, to even having the opportunity on a Saturday to just say, hey, you want to just play some video games after lunch? Because I didn't get that. I was always working full time. I was working police work or doing my business, trying to fill it. And this is like a great opportunity to have. It reminds me of how thankful I am for right now. All that to say, it would take me 30 minutes to do that entire process. And that puts me into the first stage, which is mindset. It is finding the right mindset to attack all of the strategies and tactics that we're going to talk about in a minute. And if I didn't do that, sometimes I'd rush through it, or sometimes I would only have an hour that day, and I would talk myself out of doing that. I would not show up that well on those other areas. So that's why I would spend at least 30 minutes pouring into me, growing, learning some personal development. Notice I didn't say logging into social media or checking my email or anything like that, because if one of those things gets you off track when your time is the most important, then you're not going to be able to show up and do what you need to do. And here's the thing, like, you can look at that social media or look at that other stuff later, but if you're using that to fuel you on how you feel, you're going to feel some great days where people send you messages and say how awesome you are, but you're going to have a lot of negative days where it's now fueled by somebody saying something negative on your content or not saying anything on your content. And now literally you only have an hour to work your business, and your energy is going to be that, and you're going to get zero done in that hour. So that's why in the beginning stages, it's all about mindset. Now, I talked to you a second ago about how I'm going to help personalize this for you, but that was just my strategy in terms of that first half an hour, right? Now, what I would do after that is this is when I would start planning my day. I would think, okay, what are my goals, and what are 2 to 3 things that I can do today with excellence to take action towards my goals? And by doing that, I probably would have 45 minutes or an hour max, usually 45 minutes on the tactical part. So I'd spend 30 minutes on the mindset, preparing my mind, getting me ready, getting me motivated, and about 45 minutes of like, here's the 2 to 3 things that I'm going to do today to move my business, to move my goals forward. All right. Then after that, I would do my other things, which is like exercise, pack my lunch, go to LAPD, spend about 12 hours there. And then when I would come home, I would build in some like family time, recovery time, because obviously I would wake up in the morning and my kids wouldn't be awake yet. So I could get all of those other things done. At nighttime, I did not do any extra work. So some people are like, man, like they do work in the morning and then do work after they get done from their shift. I found that that's not the best use of my energy, because not only am I tired when I'm doing it then, but also the next morning I was exhausted too if I was doing work all the time. And I felt like I was getting off track because my core values of family was not being like withheld or upheld. So that's why on those days, I would just come home from work. I would not do any work. Sometimes maybe I would make a phone call like on the way home. If not to Teresa, then maybe to like, a client or something like that. So I could have because it's like an hour and a half sometimes drive in LA, but I wouldn't schedule any work for when I got home, because that was like family time and recovery and recharge time. And then I would go to sleep and I would get 8 hours of sleep. People are like, what? Like, what? You got to sacrifice your sleep, right? But doing that in that way helped me produce more in an hour than most people produce in 5 hours. I just have to say it.
Yeah. And I think for you, it was a lot more important to get that sleep because of your Crohn's disease too, because it was just something that would help you kind of handle the stressors of work and the demands of all the other stuff. Right.
100%.
So super important to get that in.
Okay, so that would be my normal work day. Do you have anything that you would like to add to that part before I go into like a normal day off?
As far as like what might look like?
Or if there's like any things that like any tweaks that you made to your work day, if there's any differences to what I was just talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to talk about like how we got to that point. Because my routine was pretty similar to Mark's when I was working full time, but I think what got us to that point is important to point out. And really, because we didn't really have a routine prior to us creating a business, because there really wasn't a need for it in our eyes, right? Because we didn't have like this thing that we were working on and this extra thing, right? So it was just kind of like the normal stuff. We would just get up, get the kids ready, take them to grandma's and everything like that, and then go to work and then come home, and like that kind of routine. But then when we were wanting to get healthy, then we were like, okay, well, when are we going to work out, right? When are we going to go to the gym? When are we going to do that? And then things started to happen. And long story short, we kind of created a priority list, right? And our priorities were taking care of ourselves and focusing on our mindset and working our business in the, the time that we were able to do that. So I think that what got us to that point and what made it seem like really critical to create a routine or a ritual was the fact that we had this new goal now, and we had to figure out how we were going to make it work and, contribute to the efforts every single day.
Yeah. I mean, that's an important piece of the puzzle, right? It's
Mhm.
like, first you have to get to the point where sometimes it's like we mess it up, right? Or we're like, how are we going to be able to do this, right?
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we do often is we ask ourselves questions that don't have good answers, right?
Mhm.
So instead of
Mhm.
saying like, I don't have the time, I can't grow my business.
How am I going to do this?
Yeah, how am I going to do this? Why isn't this working for me?
Mhm.
Like those are the wrong questions. Obviously, being able to ask questions of like, how might you be able to do that?
Mhm.
How might you be able to excel in both of these
How do I
areas?
make this work?
Yeah, how can I make this work?
Mhm.
It's just a different mindset. When I get a message back from someone, and even if they're a one-on-one client and they ask a question like that, how can I do this? I know they're going to be able to succeed with it because I'm like, you're looking for the answers.
Mhm.
Maybe I don't have the answers, but you're going to find them,
Mhm.
right? But if you're like, what's wrong with me? How come this isn't working? Why isn't it growing so
Why
fast?
is it
Like
so
there's
hard?
only why is this so hard?
Yeah.
There's only negative things that can come out of it, right?
Mhm.
And so, like when you think about this logically, if you have a plan, you're going to be able to execute on it, right? And they have that thing called Parkinson's law, where it's the amount of time that you have is the amount of
Mhm.
time you'll take for that specific thing. So if
Mhm.
you have 2 hours and you're just going to invite, you're going to take all 2 hours to invite like 5 people, right?
Or you're going to get distracted and do other stuff right
100%.
after.
Because you're like, I got 2 hours, I'm good to go, right? But
Yeah.
if you're like, you got 10 minutes to do this,
Mhm.
you're like, I can't mess around. I got to jump in and I got to take this
Mhm.
action, right? And it's the same thing with your schedule, being able to look at that and going, okay, on days that I have an hour, my schedule cannot look the same as the day I have 3 hours.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like people do that. They're like,
Mhm.
okay, I normally work my business 3 hours, but today I only have an hour. So let me try and cram it all in, right?
Mhm.
I remember when LAPD, we were being deployed. And what that means is like when there's a riot or there's something that is going on, they cancel all your days off, they cancel all your time off, and you're just there. Remember, we were there, I was 13 days, I think, in a row. So
Mhm.
13 days in a row. Like, and in that moment, I realized that one thing that I had not planned for is having like an emergency kind of like tracker. It's like I normally have a tracker which has like 7 or 8 things on it. This is how I reach out to people or how many people to have conversations with or what videos I'm going to be posting, things like that. Right. And I realized in that moment that I need a tracker that's 20% of the 20%. What are 2 things that I can do today? And that's all I did. And what's awesome is it was the 2 right things. Because if you're just trying to just do all of them and you skip over a couple, you'll usually skip over the most important ones and do
Mhm.
the ones that are least important. But when you intentionally go, what are the 2 most important things that I can do? I only have a half an hour today.
Mhm.
You're still going to be moving the needle forward rather than thinking, I just don't have the time to do this, so I just won't do any of them. So really powerful is like the idea of like intentionality around your time, around your schedule, and around your plan.
Yeah. So one thing I want to point out is that you said how like it's the whole how can I make this work rather than I can't do this.
Yep.
I'm working right now. It's an emergency. Like, and you instead of saying, hey, like it's okay, like obviously this is an emergency and I can't work my business right now. You took it the whole other direction. You're like, okay,
Mhm.
well, how can I make this work? Anybody
Mhm.
else would have been like, see, I
Yep.
can't do this, right? And I mean that just shows your level of dedication to that specific goal, right? Because I mean, this would be another excuse
Mhm.
for someone else. And I'm not saying that like that's how it should be for everybody else, right? But you determined that that still was a priority and you were going to find a way to do it no matter what, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of comes up as you say that is like, this isn't something that normally my brain would do. Like before I was a part of masterminds, before I was
Mhm.
getting coached, before I had a mentor, I would never ask myself a question like that. I would ask myself a terrible question, which is like, why can't I do this? Why isn't it happening fast enough? Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with what I'm doing?
Mhm.
And I want to let you know that like if that is you, like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just like how can we reframe it? Maybe you need to work with a coach one-on-one. Maybe you need to like get some more help in learning how to ask better questions because It doesn't happen naturally. Our brains are wired to see what's broken, wrong, or missing, to see the distractions on the news, to see Facebook. I mean, the reason why Facebook and Instagram is doing so well is because it's literally grabbing people's attention, right? So something like that can very easily grab your attention because that's what our brain is designed to do. Look for the dangers, right? And so one of the ways of doing that for us is looking for all the possible loopholes that we can convince ourselves so that we don't have to do the hard things, right? That's also why most people aren't successful at this, because they see that as a roadblock. They don't see that as an obstacle to be able to get through and now help other people through it, right? And when you can make that transition and make that change in your brain of like, actually, this is going to make me the type of person who can help someone else through it. Now you have an opportunity to go, well, how might I make this happen? How might I excel in both of these? How might I actually achieve more by doing less? Right. And when you start asking those questions, you come up with really great answers. And I remember the first time I was asked that question was on a Dad Edge call where I was a part of a mastermind. And they saw that one of my limiting beliefs was that I had to go all in one area of my life and I couldn't succeed in the other. And I remember Jason at the time, he's like, Mark, how could you excel at both? How could the fact that you excelled in your career actually help you excel in your business? How could the fact that you excel with your family actually make you a better business owner? And when I thought about that, I was like, wow, that's a really powerful question because it's asking me, how could I do both? What people I don't think realize is when you ask a powerful question like that, you now have a filter on whether or not you should take the next step on something that kind of like comes up, right? There's a million ideas, right? We're like, oh, we're all over the place, squirrel kind of thing. But if you have a filter of like, okay, it can only be something that'll make me better in business and better as a husband, then I'm like, I'm open for it. But a lot of them are like, nope, that won't work. Nope, that doesn't apply. Oh, but this one does. And now you get to have a better filter because you're programming your brain exactly what you want, right? Just by asking really great questions. Okay. That being said, so that was a work day. A little bit different from a day off for me is I still did the same things. I would still wake up to the 30 minutes of personal growth, affirmations, doing some mindfulness, doing something for about 30 minutes to fuel my mindset, right? Identifying the top 3 actions. I would still, after that, spend about 45 minutes on my business, go out and exercise. And then after that, I would start helping out, whether it's getting the kids up, getting them ready, going to school, whatever we need to do for that day. And then I would talk to Teresa, and her and I would think about like, okay, when are we going to work today? Like, and we usually do this actually the Sunday beforehand, which is like, hey, I'm going to be working from this time to this time. Like, when are you going to be working? So we can kind of like work this out together, right? So she can step in and go pick up the kids or take the kids or vice versa. And then we can kind of like work and blend our schedules together, which I think is a really important piece, whether or not your significant other, the people you live with, are your business, are in business with you, because no matter if they are or not, they are. Right. They're also an important part of this. So getting them to buy in and having like some type of Sunday breakdown where you're having that conversation is important. But I wouldn't work any more to 3 to 4 hours when you like look at it during an off day. Still didn't want to work myself to death. I would put as much stuff as I could on those off days. Usually I'd work like 4 days a week for LAPD and 3 days a week would kind of like be like this, except for Sunday. But this is kind of like the structure that I would have for what I would term to be an off day. Does that make sense? Okay, now the third type is on Sundays. So I told you that Sunday was a little different. And Sundays is where we have the greatest opportunity to grow, because Sundays, as long as you're using it as an evolution day, learning from last week, planning for next week, taking what you learned from last week and implementing it into next week, you're going to grow your business. You're going to see pitfalls. You're going to see where you can make adjustments, and you're going to grow, and you're going to like be able to achieve your goals. If you do not make Sunday or any day a reflection time, you're going to keep doing the same things over and over again, experiencing the same pain, right? Our video for Jim Rohn, like, always keeps coming up. Like, it's getting the most views right now. But he says, for things to get better, I have to get better. For things to change, I have to change. And if I want something different, I have to do something different. So if you're going every single week and not changing your schedule, not tweaking it, not looking to see how you can make adjustments, you're just going to keep getting more of what you're currently getting. That's why Sundays, or at least one day, I would literally just sit down and go, what did this week try to teach me? What lessons do I have from this week that I can move into next week? And then the next question is, how can I teach these lessons next week to the people who follow me? Like, I think that's a step that maybe some people miss, is asking myself, like, how can I teach these lessons that I learned this week in my content moving forward? And like, the content just spills out of me. It's like, oh, I can teach this, 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 and this. Like, people don't know that. Like, a lot of our content here is like from me realizing, oh man, I need to take a look at my schedule again. Let's teach other people how to take a look at their schedule, right? Because when it's real fresh in my brain and I do it for myself, it's very easy to coach and to help other people through that too. So All right. Anything on that?
No, it's just there's so much to unpack,
Yeah.
right? But I think that I mean my schedule is pretty similar, and I think that I guess my overall theme for what I do in the mornings to get ready and work my business or get ready for the day, or choosing Sunday to use as a reflection day and also like a planning day, is the theme around protecting my energy.
Mm.
And for example, the daily routine is I start off with understanding that, okay, today's a new day. How am I going to protect my energy? Right. And I start off with like the whole mindset piece, like getting ready for the day and realizing that, okay, this is my time for just me. There's nobody's awake, no interruptions. I can really kind of be at peace and take advantage of that, because I really need to like hold on to that energy so that it can move me and help me flow throughout the day and working out and doing all of that stuff. But then Sundays is really about planning for me. And because I wear a lot of hats, right? And I have to know like specifically what's most important to do this week, and prepping a lot of stuff. Like I prep my content, I prep, things with Mark. We work together, obviously, so we make sure that we know what we're going to be doing, and the appointments and things like that. Like just the life stuff, because it's all blended. And I just focus on like how I want to show up, right? So if I want to show up at my best, then I have to do a lot of planning, and I have to make sure that I understand that it's not going to be a perfect week, right?
Mhm.
And that I'm just going to do the best that I can. But I still try to set up a structure that I know is going to help me and guide me throughout. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's actually help them, like when it comes to like their specific plan routine, to do exactly what you were saying.
mhm.
Amber says Saturday is my reflection day, as Sunday is my planning day, and it definitely helps a ton. I just haven't gotten it down yet. Amber, I haven't gotten it down yet either. Every week teaches me something new.
Yeah.
It helps me level up. I mean, I really feel like is the blessing, sometimes the curse, but the
Mhm.
blessing that we have as coaches is to start seeing things as opportunities
Mhm.
rather than I don't have it all figured out, because you'll never have it figured out. Guess what happens when you have it figured out? Something decides to change that for you, right? And we
Mhm.
have to be willing to adapt and change and overcome like all those kind of things, right? So I feel you. I feel you on that. Okay. So what we're going to do right now, guys, is I want to take you through a very, very quick exercise where I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want to actually have you pop them into the chat. One of the things that we do, especially for the inner circle, is we have conversations back and forth, because I can help level up what is kind of like what some of the answers are. Maybe you're trying to explore something and trying to find some different forms of not only thoughts, but actions for you to take. I can definitely help you when we're actually being able to communicate like this. We do that a lot inside of our inner circle call, but I want to try and bring that here to all of YouTube. So as we're going, I want to hear your answers to these so we can help level these up. Okay. Now, one of the things you do have to take into consideration before we go through this is realize that you're going to have a different goal in terms of what you want to be able to achieve than potentially what me and Teresa have, or that your friends have, or other people that you're in a program with, or all those kind of things. You have to identify what your specific goal is, because from there, you're going to be able to identify what those actions are that are the most important and meaningful, right? If you want to speak on stage, it's different than somebody who wants to do workshops, on YouTube, versus someone who wants to do a podcast, versus someone like your activities are going to be different. And so you have to lean into what do I specifically want, so you can begin with the end in mind.
Mhm.
And then also you have to determine like how much time do you actually have. We have a one-on-one client and they have 5 hours to work their business. You better believe they're going to be having different actions for them to take than somebody who only has an hour to work their business.
Mhm.
It's not just, oh, you just take what you do in an hour and do more of it. No, there's things that complement each other. They compound. So if you only have an hour to do this, but you have 2 or 3 hours one day, you're not going to just do more of what you're doing in the first day. No, you're still going to do that the same amount of time, but then you're going to do things that compound that message, right? One of the things we talk about here with Kurt a lot is like using content in a way where you're just like presenting it and pushing it to the masses. So we spend time doing this, right? I mean, we spent a couple hours putting together this workshop for you guys, right? Takes us about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour to like record. We put it here and then we blast it out to the world. Meaning we talk about it on social media. We talk about it on our email list. We talk about this in many different avenues so that people can use this resource without us having to work harder. That's one of the things that if you have an extra, time during the day, you can spice it up by asking yourself, how can I do those first 3 things? Or what can I do to make those 2 to 3 things that I absolutely need to do actually be in like super drive, right? Put some jet fuel in them. And so this is all questions that you're going to want to consider depending on how much time you have and what your specific goals are, right? But we want to take you through this workshop to figure out your strategy for your plan moving forward, knowing that it's going to change as you go, all right? So I want you to think about this. On days, whether it's the last week or the last month, on days where you have felt super motivated, super productive, like you got done what you needed to do to get done, go back to those days and I want you to think about what helped you get the day started. So what was it that motivated you? What excited you? What are some things that didn't come up that day that normally demotivate you? What are some boundaries maybe that you had in place around the protection of you when it comes to making sure that you're telling your mindset where to go, right? Instead of the world telling your mindset where to go. What are some of those boundaries that you had in place? I want to see some of these in the chat. So when you have had a day where you felt motivated, you felt excited, you felt like I'm unstoppable, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to crush it. I want you to think about what are a couple things that you did in the morning that, or when you woke up, that helped to push you to have then generate that mindset that you needed to show up on your A game. So I want to see some of those.
And by the way, focus on what you had control over, right?
Yes.
Because we want to make sure it's not, everybody was listening to me that day and the weather was great and this and that, right? You don't have control over that. Mm-hmm. It's whatever you had control over.
Yeah, very, very good point. Great point. I'm going to bring up Shelly's comment in a second. She has a really, really great comment that I want to bring up. But we do want to run this through the path of what you can control, okay? If you got a message from somebody like on social media, like you can't control when people message you, but what you can control is how often you look at that message. So if you screenshot it and you're like, this thing made me feel on fire, and your person said, you've changed my life forever, and that's what fuels you, then we need to save that screenshot, and that needs to be a part of your morning routine. See what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like it's we're finding clues from you and what motivates you. Mm-hmm. Have you ever read the 5 love languages? It's something that it totally blew my mind, because what I found is that for me, it's words of affirmation and acts of service. So when Teresa says something like very nice to me, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, woman, you love me, right? Mm-hmm. For her, it's quality time and physical touch. So I could give her all the compliments in the world and they would be nice, but it's not until we actually spend extra time together, or we're driving and I just reach over and I touch her. I just got a little sweaty when I did that. But when I do that, for her, that's her love language. We all get motivated differently too. And so we have to find what is our motivation love language, mm-hmm. right? That's what we want to hear today. So type it in the chat for us. What gets you motivated? What gets you excited? Even if it's something you're not doing in the morning, but you do it later in the day, what is it that gets you motivated and excited and ready to fight the day? Okay, Shelly said, while people are typing this in, Shelly says, I'm trying to go back to work days and off days as I had all off days for so long. I find on the weekends, I'm not as productive in my business as I want to be despite having limited week time. Yeah, Shelly. So obviously there's a story that we might want to attack here, right? That now that you have limited time, that you're not going to be able to produce as much. That is false news. We all know people who spend less time in their business but produce more results. I would say you're ahead of the curve because you now know what moves the needle the most because you had all of that free time. So asking yourself, what are the 2 to 3 things that I would do when I had all the time that helped me move the needle the most? And taking those and only doing those on your work days, or maybe even potentially on your off days, you can really come just as far as you did before without having to work 5 or 10 extra hours. Mm-hmm. Here's the myth. The myth is that once I retire and I have more time, I'll be able to achieve more success in my business. It doesn't happen that way. Usually we add more fluff when we have 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Usually we add more wasting time. Usually we add more scrolling on social media. That obviously is being fueled by a story we're telling ourselves, but in reality, we're actually not getting more stuff done. We're just doing the same things we used to do in 1 hour in 5. And so when you can think about this a little differently and ask yourself, what was it that moved the needle the most for me, when I felt most on point, when I was getting the most feedback? And then just doing that will help you so that you can take those actions the next time, but also reminding yourself that, hey, there isn't a story in there of the amount of time that I work in my business equals the amount of money that I get out. That's a W-2 or a full-time employee mindset. I had it for a very long time. Amount of hours I worked at LAPD produced the amount of hours or money that I would get in my check. Business does not work that way. It does not. So release those limits that your brain is telling you that because you don't have enough time, you're not going to be able to grow your business. Instead, start thinking differently. How could I grow my business anyway, even though I'm not spending as much time? And then how can I teach that to others, right? Because everybody wants to know that. That's the reason why you guys are coming here. It's because we literally framed this as like, how can you do more work when you don't have time? I mean, we're literally selling that to you. It's the reason why there's so many people here on the webinar, right? Or the workshop, because that's what we're selling, right? It's the same thing that she's going to be able to sell.
Yeah. And it's really not about time at all, to be honest. It's about like what you do and how you do it. And it could be in a very short period of time, right? Like when I was working full time, I think I was getting more done when I had limited time. Because when I came home, it was like, oh, I have all of this time in the world, but it's almost like you said, it's like the Parkinson's law, right? And then there's a lot of time to think, and I'm an overthinker.
Oh yeah.
And that got me into a lot of trouble. Right. So I really had to like create that structure for me and really kind of say, these are my specific work hours. Even if I have the entire day, I still have other things to do. So I would make sure that I only had a limited time, because I feel the most productive and efficient when I do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually, I was listening or reading Ed Mylett's book. And he was talking about like
Which
how
one?
he thinks of time differently, The Power of One More. And he talks about like how he doesn't think about it as one day. He thinks about it as 3 days. He's like, he has the first 6 hours, the second 6 hours, and then the third 6 hours, and then he goes to sleep or whatever. And the way that he was thinking of it, like writing about it, I was like, how does this make sense? But it makes sense in the realm of what you just said right there. And it's because what he does is he condenses his workday. Instead of thinking, I have 6 hours to work today, he says, I have 1 hour to work right now. And this is what I'm doing in this hour. And then when the hour gets up, he's like, okay, now I have 1 hour to work. And so instead of having it be in a compartment of 5 hours, if you thought about it in compartments of like smaller, like bunches, because you'd be amazed when you're like, I only have 1 hour to do this. You think of things that you would have never thought of.
You
right?
prioritize too.
And it gets you really creative too. You're like, I need to do this right now. I can't miss it. I've got to do it. Right. And you get it done, but it also gets you creative. Like, who can I get involved in this? How can I do this? Have a system do this? How can I have some automation do this? And then you're like, why didn't I do this any other day? Right. I can't tell you like how many days we actually learned something from the days where we have just a few hours that actually got to carry over into our other days, right? Like right now, like, I mean, the number of things that our team does, they take so much stuff off of our plate and they do a way better job at it. But like, if we hadn't been where we were just like, only having an hour to do all of our stuff for the whole entire, week, like if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have a team right now. And we'd have to be depending on ourselves to be able to do it. So actually building it up in the process has really helped us a lot. So that was the mindset piece, guys. I want you to think about like, how can you move those things? I know a couple of people talked about like, Trisha says dancing, affirmations, and acts of service. So when we think about some of the things that fire us up and motivate us, if there are things around the time that we do, like around work, wake up time, then we can continue to do those and make sure that those are on our list. But if there's things that happen during the day or later in the day, like for example, like one of the things that people told me before is like, Mark, I really enjoy like watching our videos or being a part of our workshops or being like watching one of our affirmations videos and stuff like that. And they're like just listening to it like on the way home, right? But they're like, you know what? I really wished I had this in the morning time. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure YouTube is open in the morning time. Like, I don't know why. Like maybe you're driving and you get super pumped up. I'm like, what if you just spent 5 or 10 minutes in the morning time listening to a motivational video or like whatever that is? I'm like, you're going to get like way more done in the rest of the 45 minutes that you have that day. And they're like, I never thought of that. Right. It's because they're kind of stuck in that. So think about like, how can you take those and move it into your plan so that you really get into that place where you're like, your mindset is like, I'm going to crush it. And then we move on to the second step, right? Which is thinking about like identifying what your daily actions are, right? So there's the mindset piece and there's the tactics / strategy, right? So when we think about this, we got to think about the most important stuff. Like some things matter more than others. We talk about this as the Pareto principle. It's the 80-20 rule. And that means 20% of your actions in your business will produce 80% of the results that you see in your bank account. If you do those 20%, you will get 80% of the results. When I was working at LAPD and had those 13 days, I was doing just the 20%. I was still getting paid because I was finding out what is the most important things that move the needle. And I was either eliminating, outsourcing, or just saying, I just can't get to it. And, there was a part of me, like at that time, I was like, I don't like that I'm not getting to this. I don't like that I'm not doing my weekly podcast, or I don't like that but I'm like, does my podcast actually make me money? It didn't at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is not a good use of my money. This is my time. Because if I only have an hour, like, why would I put time and energy into something that is not actually giving me money back? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I identified what are the 2 to 3 things that move the needle the most. And that's what I do every single day. As I ask myself, what were 2 to 3 things that I can do today to help move the needle the most? And then I look at how much time I have and figure out how I can adjust it into that time frame, right? So if I have an hour, it's going to be a little different than I have 3 hours, right? If I have 3 hours, it's going to be a little different than if I have 5 hours. So really, this is one of those things where no matter how much time you have, you just have to identify the most important activities. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself, how much time do you have each day to work your business? And when you think about the activities that you take, the things that you're doing that have the most potential to move your business forward, what are those 2 to 3 things that you do? Now, some of you guys might be like, but I don't have 1 million clients yet, but I don't know exactly what those things are. Remember, if we ask ourselves bad questions, we're going to get bad answers. If you had to guess, if you were sitting in front of your friend and they were like, I'm trying to grow a business, what are the 2 to 3 things that you would tell them or ask them in terms of like the things they need to do to actually move their business? Maybe this is like telling people that you have a program or something to sell them. Maybe this is reaching out to people and inviting them to take that next step with you. I don't know, whatever those things are for you, asking yourself like what are the most important actions to get people to take that next step? It's probably not designing a Canva graphic. It's probably not going like live for 45 minutes just to like have a conversation, but really that's not where people don't buy you and pay you money directly through social media, right? It's like, no, what is absolutely the most imperative thing? Usually the difficult things, the most uncomfortable, the most like, oh, I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to get on a coaching call with one-on-one and maybe make a pitch or something like that. Those are the things that move the needle. So you have to prioritize that. All right. And then of course you can ask yourself, like, what are some ways that I can set this up? Whether it's like getting some help, finding a system, like doing things where it doesn't have to come from me. It could come from someone else to take care of the rest of the stuff that's the other 80%, right? There's going to be some things that you're like, well, I do kind of like want to do my podcast. I do kind of like want to put my posts up on social media. I just don't want to do that. So maybe I can find a system. Maybe I can find an editor. Maybe I can find, I don't know, somebody who knows what they're doing, like Kurt, who could do everything, right? It's like, it's how can I, instead of, I don't think I can, I don't have the time. And when you start thinking about that, you can start thinking outside of the box. So that is how you identify the actions for you to take. You think about how much time do I have today? What is the most important things that move my needle forward? And those are the things I do. And if I can find some outside system or way of like outsourcing this to someone else so that I don't have to do that, so that those other things can still get done, that's a great place to be in. That's what actually helped us speed up the process. But like in the beginning, if it just is you, ask yourself, what are the most important things for me to do to move my needle, move the business forward? And the beautiful thing is those things can change, right? With the evolution on Sundays, you can go back and you can change that up and you can make a different decision. But you have to at least make a decision here and move forward and take action and see if they're producing results over the next couple of weeks or quarter. And then you can make adjustments from there.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I realized, and I actually put this in the planner that I created for reflections on Sundays, was, what did I learn about myself today? That's kind of like a prompt that I put in the journal, in the planner, because it's something that can really help you. If, like, let's say we're telling you, hey, you can create all of these things, you can prioritize, you can and plan and do all this stuff, like all the tactics. But then if you realize that you could have all the structure in the world, but then you somehow don't take action, like something's holding you back, or you have ADHD and it's like, it's hard for you to like start things and be like motivated to continue to do these things. That reflection question can be super important for you to identify, okay, well, what's something that can help me with this that I just realized, so that I can put these actions into place, right? So I think that, we can tell you how we did it, and it's just how we did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that it's exactly how you need to do it, but it can help you understand you more, and how you get motivated, and how you can start to take action. And it will look different than how we do it, but being able to reflect on what is going on in your life, and also understanding that it's not always going to be perfect, but being open to, okay, well, how can I make this work for me? I think is really key.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we're going to get on to step number 3, which is the final step. But I just want to rehash this real quick in a super easy, condensed way. Number 1 is starting off with a mindset. Like, what gets you into high motivation and like knowing what you're fighting for and fires you up. Number 2 is identifying the most important things. What is the most important things you need to do today to move your business forward? These all fluctuate and change, right? Same with the whole mindset thing. Like, sometimes motivational videos will do it for you, and some days you need something else, right? Sometimes you need something else, right? But it's preparing your mind, figuring out like what it is that you're going to be taking action on. And the third piece of this is finding someone or a team to hold you accountable to it, but also to give you feedback along the way. Like, even if you do the first 2 steps, but you don't have a team, a support system, somebody to bounce ideas off of, somebody who maybe's been there before, somebody who's going to be like, that's not the most important thing for you. Like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Let's do this thing. Sometimes you need that, right? Because in your head, like when you have all of the filter of your behind the scenes, it makes sense to you, but somebody else who's maybe already achieved that is going to be like, no,
and
let's
just
not
have
do
an
that.
outside perspective, right?
100%.
Like a bird's eye view.
100%. So who is someone that, number 1, you can tell your plan to, but also that you can get feedback from in the process to be able to help you build that up. So that's the third piece. The mindset part. How do you frame it so that you get the most motivation and oomph to do those things? Second thing is like the tactics, what matters most? What are some of the actions that produce the greatest results? And third is, who is a team, a person, a mentor, a coach, somebody that you can lean into to actually get that support to not only get you to show up, but also make adjustments along the way. Such an important question to ask, because if you just have those first 2, it's very easy to get off track, to convince yourself not to take action. And when it's only in your brain and you know the things that we talked about here today, but nobody else knows it, it's very easy to convince yourself to put it on the back burner, to not do it. It's too complicated. I don't know what to do next. And you talk yourself into being overwhelmed, and you're exactly really where you need to be. It's just a matter of am I communicating, connecting with a team or a person to be able to help pull me through that? What do you think about that?
Yep.
Okay. I like it. I like it too. I like it too. And by the way, if you really do want a team, that's what we have our inner circle for. We have a team of tight niched, family-driven entrepreneurs who want to build a business they love, but also without sacrificing their family time or their own personal well-being. We're not burning themselves out. That's what we do inside of the inner circle, if that's something you're interested in. But regardless, we just want to make sure that you have these 3 things when it comes to your daily plan. What motivates, inspires you? What are the most important activities? And who can you share this with to help you through the process, to help level that up as you go? Now we have 2 things that we want to share real quick. First off, we're gonna have to pull something from the box. Let's pull from this one today. So we have this box. We're doing this every single call. We're actually pulling a question from our, we have a list of cards on our table that we actually pull from during dinner time, so we can have great conversations with our kids. We want to be able to share them here with you so you can bring them to your family connections, to your conversations, and we may even want to answer them, except for except for not that one. Sometimes we have to change them because they don't make sense. But we're going to get to that in a second. One thing that I do want to announce, okay, this is for people who are a part of our inner circle. So one of the things we're doing next week, so inner circle gets access to 2 workshops like this per month, where we actually get to have more conversations here to help guide you through some struggles. One of the things that we've heard from a lot of people in our community is a struggle with making more money, making more income. And it has a lot to do with the way that they think about money. They have a scarcity mindset. They have they think they have those sayings money doesn't grow on trees, right? What do you think? I made of money? And you don't realize that when you make a statement, when you think about your answer, how you fill in the blank to money is blank, whatever you fill in that blank is actually going to pull money towards you or repel it away. And so what we decided to do is we decided to put together a very special workshop for just the Inner Circle team to really talk about like mindset shifts you can make to help skyrocket your income. When I learned these mindset shifts and actually what was really holding me back, and I switched that, that's when not only did I start making more money, but people were coming to me to ask me to teach inside of their programs, to do things on their stage and to do all those kind of things. But I had to get really good at realizing my money mindset and how it was actually distracting me and pushing me in the other direction. If you're part of the Inner Circle, that is next Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Time. If you're not a part of the Inner Circle, once again, you can learn about it below by clicking the join button. Super pumped up about that. But I have one more because I know that a lot of you guys are also Josh Coates fans. So Josh Coates is my mentor. He basically has created a 7-figure coaching business. He quit like 6 businesses before he started his 7th business, which was life coaching. And he likes to say that he's a failed rock star to 7-figure coach. He's doing this thing where he has had 10 years as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and he has grown through so many things, so many different obstacles and speed bumps. And we're going to have him here on the channel, interviewing him live. And I get to ask him all of the questions that's going to make him squirm, that's going to make him nervous. And he's already given me full opportunity to do that. That is going to be next Thursday. So next Thursday, this is open to everybody inside the Inner Circle and outside the Inner Circle. This is next Thursday. Let me find the exact time.
February 8th. Right?
Yes. And it's at 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's 12 p.m. Central. So definitely tune into that. Subscribe to the channel if that's something you want to hear. If you don't know who Josh Coates is, just know it's somebody who's been able to successfully go from detailing cars to growing a 7-figure business online. And now he helps other people grow massively large businesses without having to spend all time and day doing that. We're going to have him there. It's going to be a really, really powerful session, but let's pull the question. Do you want me to ask the question now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So here's the question. The question is,
before we do that,
okay,
we just want to say that this is a question that you can have in your toolbox to share with your family or others. And also you can just answer it yourself.
Yes. I actually want to hear this one. This one I want to hear from everybody, but also you can use this on social media. You can go out there and you can ask questions, the engagement questions this. Okay. What are some mottos that you live by? What are some mottos that you live by? I want to share one. Can I?
Yeah.
You're going to let me?
She's
told me that I can't answer the question sometimes. So this one also connects with Josh, and he says our outward success is an expression of our inner growth. So whenever I look at something that I'm tackling and I want to become better, whether it's better as a father, better as a husband, better as physical fitness, better as a business owner, better as a leader, I ask myself, who do I need to become in order to make that happen? Because the outside is not what drives us, right? It's the inside. And when we realize that when we grow inside, the outside will just become the effects of who we truly are. So I always ask myself, who do I need to grow as in order to become the type of person that does those things, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say is one of the mottos that I live by. That being said, I want to hear from you guys. What are some mottos that you live by? I want to hear some quotes, some mottos, some things that you really, they grab your attention, that remind you of what you're fighting for, right? Some of them are from Jim Rohn, right? We kind of talked about them a little bit earlier. How about you? Do you have any that kind of come to your mind?
I have one that I've been kind of using as an affirmation for probably the last few months. And it's really simple. It's just, I can do hard things. I have this little sticker. I don't know where I got it from, but I had it in between these 2 pictures of my kids. And it's you can apply it to anything, right? I can do hard things. And it's just a reminder of my resilience, I guess.
Yeah. So. I think that everybody needs to know what that actually means. So for those of you guys who don't know, both of the pregnancies were very difficult for Teresa, for me, but not as difficult as it was for her. Andrew was born 73 days early. She had HELLP syndrome.
He was born.
He had to spend 73 days in the NICU. He was born at 27 weeks. 28 weeks. And he had to spend 73 days in the NICU because he couldn't breathe on his own. He's right over there, by the way. He's almost as tall as me. And he likes to talk back every once in a while. But she had what was called HELLP syndrome. It's kind of a severe form of preeclampsia where we had to have her hospitalized. And they're we need to get the baby out because otherwise she may not survive. And then with my daughter, She developed listeria, which she had like 104-degree temperature or something like that for like normal, like multiple weeks, and they couldn't figure it out. And they had to put a PICC line in her arm, which is like a permanent IV for like a certain amount of time. So every single time, like, she looks at those pictures, my guess is it's going through that, like, I can do hard things. Like I survived both of these kids trying to murder me.
Yeah. Like I could send a message. Like I'm not gonna die.
What's the worst thing that could happen if I send this message? Yeah. Okay, Shelly says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Oof. I love that. I love that one a lot. Tina says the worst thing that can happen is a feeling.
Yeah.
Yes, Tina, that one really connected with me. The worst thing that could happen is a feeling. Julie says, don't accept criticism from someone who you wouldn't want kudos. Not sure where it's from. Yes. Like if you wouldn't ask them for like feedback or advice, do not accept their criticism, right? Make peace with your broken pieces. I love it, Trisha. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Appreciate you for participating in that. I think I'm going to keep some of these. I'm actually going to do some screenshots myself and keep some of these for myself. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys for not only participating in this, but getting to see this from a different light, right? No matter how much time you have, I really do believe that you can make a massive impact in the world without sacrificing your family time, without having to burn yourself out, if you're willing to see things a little differently, right? And today, I hope you had an opportunity to see some different ways that you can rethink about your time, your energy, what you do in your business, what you do in your personal life, because it's really not only a great opportunity, but when you think about me going through this struggle and this obstacle right now actually makes me the type of person that's going to be able to help other people through this too. It makes it just a little bit easier. I say just a little bit, but it's still going to be hard. And I just want to thank you for being willing to show up, for being willing to step in, for being willing to like do the hard things, because it's what the world needs now more than ever. And I appreciate you for actually showing up and being that leader. Of course, if we can do anything inside of the inner circle for you, we'd love to see you and be a part of the group. Otherwise, we will see you hopefully on Thursday when it comes to our call with Josh. And if you guys have any personal questions that you want me to ask him, I already have a list of like 20. Please shoot me an email or something, and I'll send it out. Or I'll make sure I incorporate it into the training. But I appreciate you guys for being here. I hope you have an incredible weekend with your family, and that we will see you guys very, very soon on next weekend's call. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.